Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Hope you guys had a great day today. We're going to talk a little bit about some expansion news. There's some crazy maneuverings that are going on behind the scenes in college football to ensure people are a big part of the big picture going forward, because this is going to be a very wild next 5 years as I think some super leagues are about to form and the playoffs are about to change, but it's about to be absolutely crazy. And Notre Dame is a humongous piece of it. So we're excited to talk about what we found out, some of the intel that we got from Nevadabuck, and we're going to talk about all that and take your questions as well. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Medicine Sports and Zach Smith have challenged us to see who can raise more subscribers in the next month. So it's on. So if you guys have not subscribed to this channel, we need you guys to click subscribe and keep growing this channel. Send it to your friends, send it to your enemies, send it to everybody that you know, your family. Say, hey, subscribe to Buckeye Scoop, because we are in the thick of it now with them. So again, we appreciate those guys. Who've always been a little bit of an ally, but it's kind of fun to be in a competition. So we'll see what we can do to grow it. So send it along. Make sure you guys click the subscribe button, and also, like I said, I always say click the alert bell. What the alert bell does is, if by chance we decide to go early, you guys are going to let you guys know. Which sometimes on the weekends, if we have stuff to do at night, we'll go a little bit earlier, and you guys will know that, hey, we're live, let's go, and let's get together. So we appreciate you guys. Also, you guys can help us out by following us on Apple Podcasts. By doing that on Apple Podcasts, again, I appreciate you guys that already do that. It's a huge way to help us increase our reach across the globe in places where YouTube might not be allowed. So make sure you leave a 5-star review and subscribe to us on the Apple Podcast format, because a lot of people are finding us on there, and we appreciate all of you guys that are. So with that being said, Nevada, the great landscape of football is changing in college. It's been, the last 5 years, it's most significant changes in the history of the game, in my opinion, between the playoffs, conference realignment, and it's only going to get a little bit deeper as these teams decide that, hey, there's the big tickets, the small tickets. If the big tickets all band together, they can make way more money in expansion, in TV and streaming negotiation rights. What are your thoughts for Notre Dame as it moves forward? Again, you had a huge nugget today, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you remember, we were the ones who broke USC and UCLA to the Big Ten. That happened. We had that 6 months before any of the national media had that. Same thing with Oregon. Hold on for a second. 1 second here. While I let in, Kirby, the Wonder Dog, is asking to be let in to the thing, and he's going to be barking the entire time if I don't let him in right now. So I'm letting him in because he wants to hear about the Notre Dame Nugget as we're talking about it.
Kirby, for those of you guys that don't know, Kirby is actually, that was Gene Smith's nickname. And Gene Smith was very needy when Nevada was around, and Nevada would always have to let him in. He'd have to let him into the inside of the inner circle. So he'd be barking at Nevada. So Nevada said, well, Gene, since everybody calls you Kirby, we're going to say, okay, Kirby, come on in to the inner circle.
Kirby out of there. Rudy, get in there and play there. Kirby out. Okay, back to the thing. I've had a great source involved in Big Ten expansion that gave us the heads up on USC, UCLA, gave us the heads up on Oregon, Washington. And if you've been a person who's listened to the show religiously, you know how far in advance we had this over other people. Now he's telling me Notre Dame to the Big Ten, and here's why. The kind of the whole thing about the two super conferences that we've kind of broken down is starting to accelerate. There's two driving factors for this right now. One is the 2026 playoff reformat, of which the Big Ten and the SEC control. And two is the offer of private equity money that's coming to forming of these new media rights entities that are going forward as well. And so the Big Ten is playing hardball with the Big 12, with the ACC, and now they're playing hardball with Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is being left with a binary choice. Their choice is really simple. It's join the Big Ten or be frozen out of the college football playoff, because the only reason that they're in it right now is because politically they don't want to completely isolate the independents, and say you're not going to be able to do this, and because they're worried about the political backlash. And so that, you're talking about the service academies, some of the other schools that have kind of got large constituents that have large political constituents. But the Big Ten's gotten to the point where they realize that they're the show. The Big Ten and the SEC are the ones that are driving these huge dollars, and Notre Dame is just basically taking advantage of the Big Ten and the SEC by staying independent, crafting their own rights deal, yet still playing in this college football playoff landscape that the Big Ten and the SEC have kind of created for them. And the Big Ten has just had enough. They've now got to the point where they've had enough. So now the ultimatums are being given, and Notre Dame, I know they prize their independence. I know that they like that. I know that's part of their identity. I know they love their NBC deal. Notre Dame will be joining the Big Ten. And I've got that from the most impeccable source. Again, the same person who told me about USC and UCLA, who told me about Oregon and Washington. Notre Dame to the Big Ten, gonna happen. And I think this stuff, the I think the pace of things, one of my favorite sayings is, how do things happen a little at first, then all at once? I think that's what's going to happen here with this conference move to super teams, the conference realignments, the reallocation of spots as part of the expansion to 14 teams for the college football playoff starting in 2026. I think all of the stuff is going to happen here in the next 12 to 18 months, all driven by the dollars coming for the college football playoff expansion to 14 games. Notre Dame to the Big Ten, mark it down, hold me to it, gonna happen. And I'm excited. I know some people aren't excited about it. I personally am excited about it because you talk about liking marquee games. I hate out of conference marquee games because I don't feel that they serve any purpose. I feel like in conference marquee games make all the sense in the world. And eventually, when you've got all the teams, all the top 48 teams in the country playing, you no longer have games against Mercer. You no longer have games against Liberty. Every game is against someone, at least that has a pulse and plays college football. And I think that is just, that inures to the benefit of all college football fans. And then you'll have a true worthy champion. You'll have somebody who's navigated 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 games against real opponents. And it'll be the best team from there that got into the playoff the right spot, was seated appropriately, won the championship. And we can all say, wow, that was the worthy champion of college football. But Notre Dame to the Big Ten, calling it, gonna happen. Things are moving right now, and that is a major change.
Well, I think, like you said, it has to happen because the succession is going to happen at some point when you're the big dogs and you're the SEC and the Big Ten, you're the big draws. Teams either better jump in the ship or they can get left behind and be left out in the end, because the playoff will end up being SEC versus Big Ten, and I think that it'll be 24 teams in each conference, and they'll play each other, and it's going to turn into must-see TV. And I think the people that are outside of that are going to be, left out in the cold. So there's a scramble right now to get these people into where they fit in the conference realignment. And I think that is something where you'll see Florida State, Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, like the last remaining ACC schools. Notre Dame is the only independent that is of major note when it comes to where could they land and what could they do. Big Ten obviously is a much better fit than the SEC with the academic stuff, the northern stuff, but it's going to be it'll be fascinating because I think that this is going to be a turning point, because when all of a sudden you get 48 of the best teams in the country all together, and you get a commissioner and you start scheduling and uniform rules, uniform drug testing, uniform playoff perspective, that's going to be the new college football, because you can't leave. As much as it was always cute when we had the Big 12, the Pac 12, the SEC, the Big 10, like those days are over. Like the lower tier schools are going to be left behind, and they are not going to get a share of the streaming money. And if you have a super conference of the SEC and the Big 10, your bargaining power at the table versus Amazon and Apple and ESPN or whoever else will be bidding on you is extraordinary. So I think that, Notre Dame realizes, like, look, if we don't want to be a part of this, that's great, but we're never going to be able to play for anything again. And I think that something with Notre Dame, I know they've been independent forever, and that's like a big thing to them, but It's nice to be able to make some sort of an all conference honor, or you won the Big Ten or whatever. And that was always the tough part about Notre Dame. And again, Ohio State has higher standards than Notre Dame does, but um, at Notre Dame, you're either an All American or nothing, and you're either a national champion or nothing. There's no winning the Big Ten. There's no being an All Big Ten player. And again, is that the be all end all? No, because like I don't sit around and say, well, I've got my All Big Ten plaque laying around. I've got my All American plaque, which I like. And I think it'll be fascinating to see, how they assimilate, because they've been basically, I don't say they've been a Big Ten member, but they've played Michigan State and Purdue and Michigan, and they've played us the last couple years, and it's been good. Like people love going to South Bend, and the South Bend folks like to come to us, and I think it's a really good fit. So I think it'll be great for college football for them to join the Big Ten. I think it'll be one of the things that it's their only path to survival. Not to be too draconian, but it's like they have to join a conference. Like if they're going to do the Big Ten SEC deal, you can't do that and then have Notre Dame over in the silo where they say, well, we don't want to share our playoff share. And I know a lot of people said, well, they didn't have to sell their or use their playoff share, which was $20 million, and spread it among all the Big Ten teams. I'm like, well, yeah, but they're not going to make the playoffs every year either. I mean, they had a nice team last year, and Marks did a good job. But I mean, Notre Dame's been a roller coaster, and they don't stay good for long. If you guys have paid attention, but I mean, they had a lot of downturns over the last 25 years. So it'll be interesting to see what Marcus can do. Nevada, with the Super League and the future of the Big Ten, what are your projections? Because I think that is something where, again, you're a business guy, and you're a guy that you're I know you're one of the biggest numbers guys I've ever met in my life. So when you're talking about expenses and who carries the water versus who is someone that kind of defrays the value of the overall conference, like what does it mean to you if they potentially eliminate some of the bottom feeders from college football in general? And again, I'm not trying to pick on people or be negative, but the MAC and the lower parts of the Big 12 and the ACC, and you take I mean, the top ACC schools are huge draws, like North Carolina, Duke, Florida State, Miami, but the bottom tier is not great. But what does it mean to the Big Ten and the SEC when you amplify your conference and then all of a sudden, kind of craft together and become a super conference in the TV renegotiations?
Well, I mean, basically, what's going to happen is all those other schools, the lower tier schools, are just going to go to a different tier, almost like one double A, whatever you want to call it, one AAA, or whatever it might be. Um, but for the top schools, you're going to be going to uniforms. You're going to go to balanced schedules. You're going to be, which is again, I'll bring this back to Notre Dame. That's all the more reason why the Big Ten, the SEC, they can't have it where they have balanced schedules, where they have games against top 48 teams, where they have whatever they're going to do in terms of their cross pollination, in terms of the scheduling arrangement, and then have Notre Dame outside of this playing whatever Humpty Dumpty schedule that they want to put together, and then qualifying for the playoff, which really, when it really boils down to it, it's the Big Ten and the SEC that are driving everything with the playoff. And Notre Dame's great, and it's neat, and it's a neat story. But at the end of the day, the Big Ten and the SEC are only going to tolerate these hangers on for so long, and we're already seeing it. You've seen this. We talked about this 3 years ago in terms of how it was going to be a process of they're going to eventually whittle this way down, because they can't do it all at once. Because they do that, the political blowback would be just too great. It would be I mean, don't underestimate the implications of something like that. And I think for the Big Ten, the SEC, they've been really careful about not running afoul of they don't want to get the ire of politicians or the general public or the media. And I think till now they've done a fairly good job of being able to navigate that. But they're getting to the point where they're going to be ruthless, and it's going to be, hey, look, you're not going to be able just to gravy train off us anymore. And I think for the Big Ten and for their media partners, that was really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the Notre Dame negotiation, because it's very simple. It's great that Notre Dame wants to continue to do this stuff and wants to be independent and everything, but it's just not going to be an option for them going forward. And so I think, Notre Dame, look, their fans, they love these games. It's great going to South Bend. Their fans were great at the national championship game. They obviously want to continue to be part of that. And when the choice is really presented to the fan base of, hey, look, we can remain independent, we can keep doing this, but it means we'll never win another national championship, and we'll play in the Humpty Dumpty Bowl or whatever the thing's going to be. It's very easy to see how this thing ends, and I think that the Big Ten has really been playing the long game with this, and has really kind of boxed them into a corner, because in 2026 the Big Ten and the SEC call all the shots regarding the outline of the playoffs and the parameters, and so who's notably absent from that? All the other conferences and Notre Dame. And so we all know what's going to happen with the other conferences. The top schools are going to end up in the Big Ten, the SEC. Same thing with Notre Dame. Notre Dame to the Big Ten. I like I said, I have it on supremely good authority. No matter how much they posture or say publicly, oh no, well, your choice is going to be really simple: play for the national championship or get left out. And they're not going to want to get left out of football.
Yeah, I mean they can't afford that, especially when they're on this like crescendo where they just literally lost the national championship, by a couple scores to a much more talented team, very good team, obviously one of the best teams in college football history, this 2024 Ohio State team. But I mean, they were close. They're not in the same ballpark as Ohio State talent wise, but they didn't. They got blown out and then they fought back, and why would you want to avoid that going forward? And I think that that's something that the athletic director and the folks that run Notre Dame, hey, we're close. Again, the SEC. The thing about NIL is it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to schools like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, schools that have incredible amounts of money in their endowment and very wealthy donors and whatever. It's completely leveled the playing field. Like NIL to me is the greatest thing in the history of college football, because suddenly like the SEC doesn't have this distinct advantage where they had this network of people that would just pay kids and, it would all be hush hush. But, again, you can go back to like back in the early 2010s when you'd see, well, Dre Kirkpatrick's mom has a new Cadillac car, and you'd see, and again, the funny thing is like we're kind of out of the era where it's we're outside of the window, where anything could happen or whatever. So like Channing Crowder talked about how when he committed to the Florida Gators, like within 2 weeks, like he'd had all kinds of money. His mom had a new Trailblazer, like brand new, just showed up magically. So again, like the fact that we have NIL now where we can legally do this, it's the best thing ever. So like Notre Dame has never been in a more prominent position than they are right now. Now, again, they still have to defeat the fact that they're in South Bend. It's a very boring campus in the middle of nowhere. The girls aren't super hot. So, you're fighting that when you're talking to some of these superstar kids that they don't even consider Notre Dame because that's just not their jam. Or they'll consider Ohio State, they'll consider Michigan, consider some of the bigger schools. But like Notre Dame, it still has that stodgy, stale kind of imagery that comes from the fact that, there's still that rumor that these kids all stay in the dorms for 4 years. I'm like, well, they might say they stay in the dorms, but when they're making the kind of NIL money they're making, they can get a mansion in South Bend for the amount that they'd pay for a dorm. So just kind of is what it is at this point. Nevada, any other thoughts? We get into a couple super chats.
Well, yeah. No, I think that the new landscape. I think for people, I think people just have to understand that what you're going to see is more quality football. At the end of the day, you're going to see more quality football games between the top teams, and I think I think people are worried that this is going to be like the NFL, or it's going to be NFL light, or it's going to lose some of the charm of college. But I think it's going to possess all the charm of college, and you're still going to have the affiliations and the identifications, with the schools and with the Buckeyes as college college players, whether you could say student athletes or whatever the joke is on that, but certainly college players. But you're just going to have less bad games. You're going to have more good games, and you're going to have a format that allows you to play, much like in the NFL. And then nobody expects you to go undefeated in the NFL. No, nobody, you can lose
No.
3, 4, 5, 6 games or whatever it is, and still make it to the playoff, still have a chance, and still win the championship. If you're kind of going there. So, like I said, for Ohio State and for Ohio State fans, I just think, what is the future going to hold? The future's going to hold more quality games, more balanced scheduling, and less inequities like Week 11 SEC playing against Liberty while we're playing Wisconsin or something like that. And I think that as an Ohio State fan, all we want is a level playing field, because if we get a level playing field, I think we can compete with anybody and win more than our fair share of national championships. And I really think that's what the future college football is going to hold for us.
Well, I'm with you. I think that if you have a conference that is legislated and they try to balance the scheduling and they try to truly mix it up. Now, again, I like the NFL's model. And again, I might be old school, I might be whatever, but like the best teams in the NFL, the teams that won the Super Bowl and they're the NFC champion or AFC, conference championship participant, NFC conference championship participant, they have the hardest schedules in the league. The teams that are the best the previous year get they get the next year they get the hardest schedules per the scheduling arrangement. I know that they switched the divisions, and if the AFC West played the NFC West last year, then they'll switch to a different division the next year for half the schedule. But the other half of the schedule is like the hardest teams in the league. So that's why the Patriots would always play. Like when the Patriots were good, they'd always play the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Colts, like all the good teams. And Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, whatever, prime time, Sunday at 4:30 on the main game. But my question to people that are against this is that is expansion, but it's also condension when you get rid of the kind of the riffraff of college football. Would you be more excited about Ohio State's schedule if they dropped all the MAC schools, they dropped Akron and, Western Michigan and, the directional schools that we've played, and you replace them with SEC schools and other Big Ten schools. And all of a sudden you're just like, well, week 2, we have to play Florida in the swamp. And then week 3, we got to play Vanderbilt. And then, in Nashville. And then week 4, we got to play whoever, Notre Dame or whatever. Like, because again, I know that seems like it's a grind and it's tough, but like, everybody would have to do it. So, again, that's the thing that's compelling to me is like, look, if Ohio State can be a part of the Big Ten SEC merger, which they will be, obviously, they'll be in the catbird seat. If it forces all the SEC schools to play real schedules and play somebody week 11 and not play Mercer and Alabama A&M and FAMU and all these other schools, like, I think it does nothing but benefit Ohio State, because our schedule is nowhere near as soft as the SEC and a lot of schools in the Big Ten. I'm looking at you, Indiana. I'm looking at some of these schools that they don't play anybody. So if you had a whole governing body that legislated, a 24-team SEC, 24-team Big Ten, and there was a scheduling crew that made the schedules and made them fair, it does nothing but help Ohio State. Because Ohio State already does it the hardest possible way. Again, Nevada, I know that you'll agree with me on this because you agree with all the smart stuff I say. Like Ohio State, and again, this is not an indictment on Ohio State and what they've done in the past, but what they did in the past is the past. But going forward, like us having to play, I don't know, Texas and then Bama and then Georgia, or it might be vice versa. Like that's doing it the hardest possible way, as opposed to if you join a super conference, they say, okay, well, this year you're going to play Bama, but then you're also going to play Vanderbilt and you're going to play Kentucky and, like the layups, as opposed to playing a monstrous, out of conference schedule, which again, like we have home and homes coming up with Texas, Georgia, and Bama, which is crazy, and it'll be nuts. But that's just kind of where we're at. So I think that joining a conference where they get to reconfigure that and they force everybody to play difficult schedules, especially like week 11, I think it'd be huge for Ohio State. Nevada, any thoughts? We'll dig into some super chats.
Well, no, but I think you hit the nail on the head. The nail on the head is that it forces everybody to play those games. And, I like to pick on Indiana just because people can understand that, having seen what they did last year. Again, this year they're doing the same thing. They're playing three absolute cupcakes in Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and some or whatever it is. And it's, it's just not fair. I mean, you've got such radically different paths to the playoffs and ultimately the national championship. The only way to people like those games, so the only way you can get those games is to make everybody play those games, and the only way you make everybody play those games is to have all the good teams together so that all your games are good. And that is where we're headed, and it's going to be, it's different than college football, man. It's radically different than what it was 10 years ago. I mean, you look at college football, where it was 20 years ago, where it was 10 years, where it was even 3 or 4 years ago, and it's a completely different game. But I think these are changes I like, and I think these are changes that are for the better because it ultimately is going to put a better product on the field for the fans. And at the end of the day, this is entertainment. It's sports, but it's sports entertainment, and there's nothing more entertaining than the big brands playing against each other and not worry that heaven forbid that you lose one game, that all of a sudden the dream dies. I mean, this year for Ohio State, um, you know, lost by 1 point at Oregon, and then laid an egg in the rivalry game and still ended up winning the national championship. It proved that they were clearly the best team. I mean, in any other scenario, we'd be sitting there saying, "Hey, well, we had the best team. Man, what coulda, shoulda, would have been. We were really good. We had the best players. Wow, look at how many guys we had drafted in the NFL draft. Wow, what a super team we were in 2024." But we'd have no hardware. Well, now we got the hardware to back it up. On top of we're going to break the bank on the draft as well. So no, it's definitely good for Ohio State, and it's definitely good for football fans.
I think, again, all I really care about, I'm like you, is how does it affect Ohio State? And when you look at, the teams joining together, the amount of money we'll raise by cutting out some of the riffraff, and again, like an SEC Big Ten playoff would be, that's it. I mean, after that, you're looking at it's almost like a 1AA playoff for the stragglers that are left out. But the leverage you would have, again, all I've ever craved since I've been a player was, a uniform process for everything. And I think that like if there was an SEC Big Ten, call it the Big SEC. We'll call it the Big SEC. That'll be the name of the league. Like they need to have uniform drug testing. They need to have a uniform standard if they're going to regulate NIL. They need to have if they're going to do a salary cap. If they need to have discipline, because again, the thing that's been said a billion times by me on the show is that college football is the only major sport that doesn't have a commissioner. And again, when you look at the NHL, look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, there's always one guy who's at the top of the food chain, and he gets to make decisions for better or worse, usually for better, in the grand interest of the league. And when you're dealing with a league like college football, you've got schools like Bowling Green and Toledo and Akron, the have-nots going against Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, Texas, the haves. And the gulf cannot be any wider, and there's no homecoming to get you. So again, I'm excited to see if this goes down and they all join together, because Notre Dame would be huge for the Big Ten, and I think that they need to do it. All right, I got some super chats. Again, I appreciate you guys. Josh Doyle, thank you for being an Ultra member as well. Thanks for the 10. Nevada is a living database. The amount of data tidbits and stuff he does is astounding. Glad he's a Buckeye. When's that book coming? Nevada OH?
I-O.
All right, Mr. Database, go ahead and talk.
I mean, yeah, no, I do have a lot of useless facts floating around my head. My head is a very busy place, and Kirk gets the brunt of it because he'll get like crazy ideas or random stats or stuff thrown at him a mile a minute every day. So pray for Kirk. Hashtag pray for Kirk. Because he gets to deal with it. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna write. I don't know if we're gonna write a book, but this podcast is kind of like my book. This is my outlet to. We talk about old movies. We talk about music. We talk about the NFL. We talk about expansion. We talk about all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, this is a great outlet for somebody who knows a little bit about everything, but not a lot about anything. And that would be me.
I just got a text message. I gotta get some stuff set up real quick.
Oh no.
So since we have no folks ever that are surrounding us, our good friends Urban and Shelly Meyer are in Vegas right now to see Nikki and
wow.
Corey Dennis, and they're going to SCK tonight, and they're taking Dan Mullen and his wife, and they're gonna have.
They need a reservation.
No, I think they're straight because they know Chef. They know my boy Stephen Hopcraft and my boy Luis and my boy Edgar. But I just sent him a text to make sure, hey, you got the squad coming through tonight. So they're all excited. Again, I'm happy as can be for Corey Dennis and Nikki Meyer because like after living in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a year, like to go from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Tulsa Kings to Vegas, I couldn't even imagine. So Shells and Urban are living large and enjoying life right now, and happy for him. It's awesome. So, but yeah, I just got the bat signal thrown up, so I gotta make sure, But we've got friends in high places on the scoop. Again, like Urban, he was one of the first guys to wear our gear, and he'd wear it on Big Ten Network and everything else. So it was good. So I got to hook our guys up. So, but I appreciate you, Josh. Yeah, Nevada is a living database until it becomes time to make a key code for certain financial institutions to get stuff done. So then the database turns out says
No. Hold on. We get a thing today from our bank because we're doing some thing, changes bank, and I literally get 6 emails, and it's like token authorization, download app thing, find temporary password to username, and it's like I'm like I have no idea what this is even. I don't even know what this is. Can't somebody just like log me in and let me know what the thing is for the thing? Like there's no Elon Musk could not have figured out how to get on this thing that was going on today. This was an impossible task that you were throwing at me. Token, like some token authorization
like
thing.
I threw at you. I didn't throw anything at you.
Yeah, you did. You did throw it.
When did I throw it at you? Did it come from me?
You should have just taken care of it and just said, "Here, Nevada."
Oh,
I'm gonna spoon feed it to
like
you.
Yeah, Grandpa Simpson out here. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
so
that's me.
Do you remember your password? What's a password? I don't know what a password is. I don't even know what that means. I'm like,
no, I have it logged in the computer. It's like it's in there. It's saved.
They've made it so easy for you to just not know anything. It's the greatest thing ever. It's like I wrote my password one time 4 years ago, and it just puts it in every time. So I have no idea what it is. I mean, it could have been Huckleberry Finn. It could have been cigarette packs. It could have been Hellcat, Thundercat, T-Bird, Firebird, whatever you call it. It's like you have no idea. And that's the best part is like I'm like, he has no idea what his passcode could be. I mean, because normally if I was trying to hack your account, I would have typed Will Howard, capital W, capital H, Will Howard, Trey Henderson, capital W, capital H, capital T, capital H, Will Howard, Jim Knowles, capital W, capital H, capital JT.
That's true. But I do love them.
Now it's just like, I don't know if you're going to do like Will Howard / Matt Patricia yet, but I don't think that he's on that level yet because you don't know.
No. I'm doing Evan Mobley rocks. Evan Mobley rocks.
Evan Mobley is that's your new baby. He is.
I love like, Evan Mobley.
He's over LeBron and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at this point. So it's like Evan Mobley.
He's so well. I love it that people are like, he's the problem on the Cavaliers. They need to get rid of him. And I'm like, that's just the stupidest take that I've ever heard in my whole life. Oh, he's terrible. We should not have drafted him. It's like now they're like derping all over him. But
I mean, he's like all NBA, isn't he? Or like defensive all NBA. I mean,
Yeah,
I
he's probably
mean,
going to win Defensive Player of the Year and
yeah.
Most Improved Player. It's like derp,
Let's
derp.
let's ship him to Memphis and get a couple lottery
Oh
picks.
God,
Let's
oh
get an
God.
unprotected second round pick for Evan Mobley. That'd be smart. Donald Carrot Rossbeck, thanks for the 5. Appreciate you. Thanks for being an member as well. I'm okay with Notre Dame to the Big Ten, but have you heard who will come in with them? Nevada OH?
oh
I mean, we've heard a ton of teams. We've heard Carolina, Duke, Florida State, Clemson. I mean, I think Clemson's probably destined for the SEC, obviously, but Nevada, have you heard anybody else that could come in with them?
well, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be the whole Florida State, Miami. I think potentially Georgia Tech is in play, Virginia, North Carolina. Um, I don't know about Duke. I don't know. I don't know about Duke in terms of that, but I think when Notre Dame happens, I think it'll be part. I think it'll be kind of like the USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington thing. I think it'll be part of a four pack, and any combination of the teams I said will be make up the other three. Um, and they could stagger them. They could bring in two and then bring in two, 12 months later, 18 months later, but it's happening. I mean, Notre Dame knows it. Notre Dame knows it. Um, they're already starting to look at details on their NBC deal and how to kind of integrate that as part of the package. But Notre Dame knows what's up, and the lifeboats are kind of lining up, and they're starting to kind of file on right now.
Yeah, it's going to be Tokyo left in the middle of the ocean, man. It's going to be tough going forward. Russ Thaler, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, my friend. With Notre Dame in, who else comes in? Love the show. Thanks, Rick in Nevada. Kind of touched on that, but like I would love for Florida State to come in and Miami because I want to go to Miami, but my wife went to Florida State and she always wants me to go to a game in Tallahassee. And I'm like, I'm not going to the armpit of Florida unless Ohio State's playing there. So as of now, they're not on a future schedule, and I hope they never show up on a future schedule. But if they do, then I'll be drugged down there to watch Chief Osceola throw the spear in the middle of the thing and watch Ohio State win by about 87 points, like 87 rip, because Florida State is terrible now. And I'd love them to play the Hurricanes because I think we'd have a huge Ohio State contingent because there's so many cheap direct flights to Southeast Florida. The only thing that'd be better is if there's a school in Naples because that's like the king of old Ohio State fans. But I would love to see them play the Hurricanes because all of my Naples folks would go across Alligator Alley, fill the stadium up, and listen to us beat the absolute Christ out of the Miami Hurricanes because that's what we would do. Nevada, any thoughts? Any other schools that could be entering the Big Ten along with Notre Dame Part 2?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it's going to be, I mean, look, Florida State, to me, they've, I wouldn't even say they flirted. They've basically thrown themselves at the Big Ten, and I think the Big Ten, um, has basically just been kind of waiting to see how it's going to break out in terms of these new agreements. But they're already looking at the next agreements and how additive teams are to the total pot. And the issue with Notre Dame is that Notre Dame's such an outlier because they're the only team that comes in and that may be additive to what the Big Ten's doing. They're not dilutive. So you've got Notre Dame that's going to come in at one rate, and then you've got other teams that are going to come in at different rates. And so um, it's not like USC and UCLA that kind of came in under the same parameters, and Oregon and Washington came into the same parameters. So I think that's where there's going to have to kind of thread the needle on it. But I think the way that the timing's setting up right now, if you said gun to my head who it would be, I'd say it's going to be. I'll say Notre Dame, Florida State will be the pairing, and I think those make the most sense. And I think those two would be two tremendous adds to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Nevada, good show tonight. Any final thoughts to wrap this thing up?
No, I'm excited about the Notre Dame thing. Like I said, I know that
Yeah.
some people maybe, but I mean, I'm a big fan of big brands. I think that they help what we're doing. They just again put them on your schedule, and now you've got games against UCLA and USC and Oregon and Washington. Now Notre Dame and say Florida State. These schedules are about to get crazy, crazy good, And I'm excited about seeing how Notre Dame integrates into the Big Ten and how this whole thing kind of comes down. But when it does come down, remember who told you first. Scoop had it first.
Yeah, I think that people are more excited about Notre Dame after they saw the performance in the playoffs and the championship. They beat Georgia. They're competitive against us. Obviously, we blew them out of the water in the first half, but I think that's something that makes me a lot more excited about them heading into the Big Ten. So I think they'll be a good ad, and it's great money for Ohio State. So I hope it all goes down. So, all right. With that being said, I appreciate you guys that are a huge part of the show. Let's win the subscriber war. So Zach Smith called us out, and he said he wants us to give us a little subscriber race. So let's do it. So if you guys have not subscribed to the show, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys. Make sure give us a big follow on Apple Podcasts. Again, that is our number one format that we are working on day over day, year over year, trying to grow the audio format. So give us a follow on Apple Podcasts as well. And that'll be huge for us as we go forward. So again, I appreciate you guys. The Buckeyes are playing at 10:30 tonight, so it's gonna be a late one. If you guys are staying up for that USC game, this is do or die tonight. They've had a rough stretch out in LA, but it's go time for these guys. Let's see what they can do. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow, 7:10. We'll be ready to roll. You have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.